There is a scripture that if you have a pen, I didn't put on the scripture. I didn't even think of it until this morning when I was reviewing this. But I think it really does pull it all together. And it is 2 Timothy 3:16. You don't have to look for that, but you can look it up later. 2 Timothy 3:16. And what it says is that all scriptures, what we're here today is to learn the scriptures. Why do we want to know these scriptures? They are so old. These stories are old. Why do we want to know them? Because they apply to us now and in the future. These are scriptures that are God-breathed. 2 Timothy 3:16 says all scripture is God-breathed and is useful. This teaching, what we will learn today, it is useful for the teaching, for our teaching, that we would be taught by the word. It's useful for that, for rebuking, for saying we're not doing this right. We can change, we can alter our way to be in the way of truth, for correcting and training in righteousness, that we would be trained by the stories of how God interacts with these people. We learn about God by seeing how he interacts with the people and the stories that he has and how things go, and we find ourselves in these stories. And what a great thing we have. Before we dig into it, I want you to look at the very top of your sheet, to look at the notes that I have, that we will not meet for this break. You can go ahead and put those notes that down on your calendars, if you will, when we will come back. I do not know yet whether we will be in here or whether we will be in the other room, but before that, we will let you know. The flowers were that you gave money for. We gave $100 to Nicole. No, I'm sorry, that's not true. $100 worth of flowers to Nicole, $100 of flowers to Elizabeth Taylor. And then there was about, I don't know, amount, 70 maybe, that we gave in cash to Nicole for her moving, because that was the leftover money of what y'all gave. And I got to pray with them, got to talk to them, thank them for what what they had done for us, and they were so grateful. Okay, so let's turn to Genesis 35. It is on page 47. We are going to study today. We're going to be in Genesis 36, but I want to start with 35 because we didn't, last week we didn't talk about this a lot. So on page 47 in the chronological Bible, and if you're in your own Bible, it's going to be Genesis 35. And we're going to start with verse 18. Okay, we know that Jacob is married to two sisters. And one is Rachel, that he loves. He's loved from the very beginning. And then her sister named Leah. And then they each have children. And then they each have a servant. And between those four women, they have all the children that become the 12 tribes of Jacob, which his name is changed to Israel. So the 12 tribes of Israel is going to come from these four women. So Rachel is about to die. And we know so far that 11 of the children these boys have been born. But there's one more coming, and you will know the story. Many of you that know your Bibles will know that later on is like where Joseph will ask, "Where's the little brother?" And that was Benjamin. And Benjamin is going to be born, and that is when Rachel dies. She dies in childbirth with this 12th son. Okay, so that's where we're picking up. So verse 18, Rachel was about to die, but with her last breath, she named the baby Ben-Oni, which means son of my sorrow. The baby's father, who is Jacob, however, called him Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And Jacob set up a stone monument over Rachel's grave, and it can be seen there to this day, meaning of the day that Moses wrote this, it was still there. Then Jacob traveled on and camped beyond this Migdal Eder that we read, that was a place where they would keep sheep. While he was living there, Reuben, this is the oldest son of one of those handmaidens, one of those slaves, but the oldest of the 12 sons, Reuben had intercourse with Bilhah, that's the woman, his father's concubine. This is Jacob, and this is the concubine of his wife, his father's concubine. And Jacob soon heard about it. Okay, and then it goes on to say that's the cliff notes of all of the 12 tribes right under that, verse 23 through 26. And it never returns to that. And so it's just like, okay, well, that's a big statement just to be saying, okay, so this is how it all came, this is how it all came together. But I wanted you to look on your sheet, if you will, the notes that I sent out, and if you would look on that first sheet. It does talk about in Genesis 49, which we will not get to until we come back. So I wanted you to see this. You see at the top, after the introduction, it says, let's begin with Genesis 35. But we are going to see that Reuben, because of this, he forfeits his birthright. You see it over and over that the oldest, the blessing is going to come to this another child. It should go to the oldest. But we know from scriptures coming later that because of what we've just read, that he forfeits this birthright. So Genesis 49 is when that picks up, and it says, Reuben, you are my firstborn. This is when the blessing. You are my firstborn, my strength, the child of my vigorous youth. In other words, you were the first child I had. You are first in rank and first in power, but you are as unruly as a flood, and you will be first no longer. For you went to bed with my wife, you defiled my marriage couch. He's saying you were the first, but you will not get the blessings of the firstborn because of what we just read. If you only read what we read, it's like, okay, well that just kind of went under the radar, but it did not go under the radar. But it was a time in between the infraction and what you see is the punishment. There was a waiting there, which we like that waiting, don't we? It's like, okay, I should be punished, but I'm not having that. But today the lesson is going to be on how God, he doesn't just do things like we put a quarter in a slot and we get whatever we want out of there. But it is something that he is working in our lives. He is using the circumstances to conform us to him. Looking for the next thing on your sheet, 1 Chronicles 5. Chronicles does just what it says. It chronicles history. And so in 1 Chronicles, it is written, the oldest son of Israel was Reuben. This is the man who had intercourse with the slave, Reuben, the oldest son. The oldest son of Israel was Reuben. But since he dishonored his father by sleeping with one of his father's concubines, his birthright was given to the sons of his brother Joseph. Okay, let's go. For this reason, Reuben is not listed in the genealogical records as the firstborn son. The descendants of Judah became the most powerful tribe and provided a ruler for the nation, but the birthright belonged to Joseph. We learned before there's a birthright and then there's this blessing. So the blessing of the Messiah, the seed is going to come through Judah. That's why we say he is the lion, he's the Lion of Judah. Jesus is going to come through his lineage. But for this birthright, the one who's going to receive this is going to be, let's look right here where it says, it was given to the sons of his brother Joseph. Y'all see where it says that? Okay, so when you have when you start looking at a map of Israel, and you see where one tribe goes to Simeon, one tribe goes to Levi, well, the different tribes, Joseph is not in there. And it's because this birthright went to Joseph, and he had two sons. And one of them was Manasseh. You've heard those words. And it went to his two sons, and that those who inherited this birthright. And it was because Reuben slept with this woman. There were enormous repercussions of that. Yes, thank you. Needing a little help this morning. Okay, so I want you to look in the bold print on that same sheet since we're still there. But we're going to see that the dysfunction of man is going to continue as we read this, but the faithfulness of God is going to continue. And what we're looking at is God is with us. And if God is with us, and not only with us like he was in the Old Testament, but he's actually in us as believers. And that makes all the difference of what we go through. So wherever we find ourselves today, I just implore you to invite Jesus into that spot with you. Because it is an enormous difference. It is an enormous difference to know that God is with us. And we see these stories, the scriptures are given, it says for reproof, for correction, that we would find the training in righteousness. And so I want to give you a little story to start with that I'm going to circle back around, hopefully, and talk about. So just know that this doesn't end. When Scarlet Rope was beginning, we had a teacher that she came in. I think they paid her to come from Mississippi, some program there, and she was going to meet with all of the staff, and there was about 4 of them, real small, to meet with them just dealing with people in sex trafficking. It didn't take long, and because we have a cabin, and they did it at my cabin, so I got to be invited, to give them coffee, you know what I mean? Okay, so I'm there. And it didn't take long till she's talking, and you realize she has been sex trafficked, which we knew that, but she hadn't healed. And you can hear it. You can't hear it in yourself, but other people can hear it. And so as she was talking, it's like, she hasn't fully recuperated from this, and so you can tell that there's still this line in her of trying to deal with this. And she tells a story, and she said, I'm going to tell you, and this is tough. She said, I'm going to tell you that I was raped by many people, and then they put me in a room and they sat down and they ate, and it was so problematic to her, not just the rape, but you could hear in her, and they sat down and just ate a sandwich. And what she's saying is, they went on normally, like that was okay. How could you do this and then eat a sandwich? It was just like, how could God be in this situation? And I want us to see that these scriptures, it wasn't long after that I read what we're reading today, and I called that girl, and I was able to say, look at this. Because Joseph's brothers are going to sell him collectively, and they are going to sit down to eat. And she found herself in this story that God is in the most broken, perverted places. And this is the God who is calling us to say, if you will hold on to me, I am here. I am here with you. I am here in you. And we invite him into our story, as messed up as it can be, and say, I want you here with me because you went to the cross and suffered for me so that you can be in me now. You are my strength. You are the one who is the morning star, meaning the brightness that is coming in the darkness. And that we would wait on the Lord and see how this is. So actually, I did circle on around for you because I told you how we're going to find that in this story. That Joseph's going to find that his brothers sit down and eat too. Okay, so number 2, waiting while others prosper is a test of one's faithfulness and perseverance. We're like, okay, I've been praying for this all this time. This person comes along, they pray for it about a week and a half, and they get it. What is the deal? Why is it that it seems like all their prayers are answered? I'm praying these things and they're not answered. And that we need to all be honest with one another and say we have prayed for things that we've never seen. That we've prayed a long time and not seen the fruition of those things. But to encourage each other collectively and say, hold on, that there's a story in here. And the scriptures are given for this purpose, to tell us to wait on the Lord. The third thing is God can use the evil of others to accomplish the good. We don't want that to be the story. Because if that is the story, then it prompts us to forgive. And we don't want to forgive because the infraction was so large. But if we can take ourselves, the selfishness out of that story, and say that even in the evil, God is working for good. In fact, with Joseph, it was that many would be saved. And that is the purpose, not that we would flourish independently, although God is with us and he has many, many promises that sustain us and give us great joy, give us perseverance, give us peace. But the story we're living is truly for the glory of God. Are we living for the glory of God, or do we have a checklist of what God has still not answered and we're upset about that? But to say, you have not answered this, but I'm waiting on you. I believe that your timing is good. And even as the book of Hebrews says, if I never see these things, I know that you have heard me. I see it all the time with my mom. My mom lived with me, and I heard her pray all the time. I knew what she prayed for. I saw what she had written down, the things that she prayed for. And those things, some of those most important things to her, she prayed for years and years and years and years. And they never came to pass in her life. And it wasn't a month after she died that I started seeing the fruition of those things. And I even got a phone call last night. It was like my mother would just be like, this is exactly what I prayed for. Like, we must not grow weary, because we will reap if we don't faint. Does that mean that we reap in everything we want in this life? You know that's not true. But if we're living for the glory of God and we're participating with Him, we will endure. And that we will reap, and that we will not be discouraged, because we will meet with each other and encourage each other while it is today. Okay, so that's the essence of where we're going today. Okay, so go down to Genesis 36. All of Genesis 36 begins with, it says, this is the account. If you're interested at all in your notes, it talks about the word T-O-L-D-O-T. You can study this later. It's sort of an aside, but it is interesting. It means over and over the scriptures give us the toldot, if you will, of these people. The toldot of Abraham, the toldot of Isaac, the toldot of David. We get to see the lineage. This is the account of what happened. And the scriptures, God is doing this to bring us through this story of His faithfulness and how it leads to the Messiah. But we also see that He takes a break here and tells the toldot, the account of Esau. Why would He do that of a man who is opposed to the things of God? Why would the scriptures then say, yes, they have these kings, they have these princes. You can read down through there. This is who they are. They have this one king. His name is Amalek. Why would the scriptures go to such length when it doesn't lead to Christ? But what it did lead to, it led to a wisdom for the people of Israel to know their enemies. This is who is against you. Esau is he is Edom, if you will, the Edomites. These are people that are going to come against Israel over and over and over and over. And they would be able to say, no, this is from the beginning. This is an enemy. This is not someone that we fraternize with. This is He's shown us that they are mighty. They are kings. In fact, Saul would have done really well because God told him to go in and destroy all of the Amalekites coming from Esau. And he was like, yeah, but the king's really great and some of these animals. And he keeps them, and that's how he loses his kingdom, because he didn't destroy all of this enemy that God told him to. And that is how Saul was destroyed, that the kingdom came to David, King David, because he wasn't in that lineage. Remember, it was Jonathan that was in the lineage. But it goes over to David. And we see that you have these people. Of course, God is sovereign over all these things. But that we would know our enemies. And that we would know that the Edomites are from Esau. And he's showing all these things. And from it, with the whole chapter, we're not going to look at all this because it's just the names. And then it goes to, if you're in the chronological Bible, it goes to First Chronicles. It tells about it. And it comes back to Genesis. But we see that all the way down. Look in Genesis 36, 31. But all before that are just the descendants of Esau. 36, 31 says, these are the kings who ruled in the land of Edom before any king ruled over the Israelites. Okay, so you have Jacob and Esau. Jacob's in covenant with God, but who is prospering? Esau. Esau has all, you remember he said, I have so much, you really don't have to give me anything. He has all the kings, he has the land, he has the princes, he has all these things. And Jacob is the one who's walking with God, and he doesn't have these things. And that we would, once again, it's story after story after story. You can take it from Abraham. You can take so many of the scriptures and find, did they prosper immediately? And the answer is not usually, if ever. That there are people that God would conform their lives as he would give them his purposes. And that we would realize that God is in this waiting. So let's go all the way down to verse 40, 43. At the last sentence of 43, they all descended from Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites. I mean, this is, so you can, they know their enemy. They know that these are the people, these are the regions, these are these things. So he tells him, then it picks back up with First Chronicles again. It comes all the way down, and it ends with these are the clans. And so we see that he's prospered. So then it backs back up and comes back to the lineage of Jacob. So God throws in all this lineage of Esau to show a man who is prospering, but who is evil. And those people, those descendants, are people that are opposed to the things of God, enemies of Israel. Okay, so then we come back to Joseph, 37. And you want this group to be all clean and good, don't you? The other group was bad, so you want this group to be really good. But we all know there are very few people that you will ever meet that are all good, no one, or are all bad, nor are all bad. That we are so complex. You can have a group of people that really think you're great and another group that you walk in and they just don't have any regard for you whatsoever. And it is because they've seen, and we've interacted differently, and they've seen different sides. And so right here, these people, these are the covenant people of God, and they are corrupt. Verse 1, so Jacob settled again in the land of Canaan, where his father had lived as a foreigner. It's comparing, this one man is prospering, and he's still a sojourner. He's still in the land as a sojourner. This is the account. Do you see it? The Toldot. This is, once again, this is to tell you the story of this. And I'm in Genesis 37:2. This is the account of Jacob and his family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he often attended his father's flocks. He worked for his half-brothers. They were his half-brothers because all the others were of another mother, of course. The sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. But Joseph reported to his father some of the bad things his brothers were doing. What would we call that? Telling. Yes, he's telling them they're not doing right. Dad, they're not. I saw him. So, okay, so Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children. That's a problem that's so known, is because he's saying, I mean, this is going to set this up. Joseph, you get the idea, perceives this because he can tell on them. They have this relationship, just the two of them, aside from these other brothers. And remember, Joseph's mother is Rachel, the woman that he loved. He's the only one except this baby Benjamin. Okay, so Joseph. So he loved Joseph, and he'd been born to him in his old age. So one day Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe, a technicolor robe, if you will. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. There it is right there, just right out. They couldn't say a kind word to him. One night, Joseph had a dream, and when he told the brothers about it, they hated him more than ever. In the dream, he's even gonna lord over them more. Listen to this dream, he said, as if that's a good idea. I have something great to tell you. Listen to this dream, he said. We were out in the field. We were all out in the field tying up bundles of grain, and suddenly my bundle stood up. And your bundles, they all gathered around and they bowed low before mine. Now this is not great to people that already hate you. Okay, and so he says, the brothers responded, so you think you'll be our king? Do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. So soon Joseph had another dream and again told his brothers about it. The second time he told them about it. Listen, I've had another dream. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me. 11? Yeah, there you go. They know this. And so this time he also told the dream to his father, as well as his brothers. But his father scolded him and said, what kind of dream is that? He asked, will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you? He's saying, you really think that's going to happen? And I want you to see, this is reality. This is a father that loves this child more than the others, and he's even saying, it's not looking good for you. This is not the probable outcome of this. And goodness knows, God knows, that it's going to be a lot of rocky roads. But this is going to be fulfilled. It is from the Lord. And that we would be able to pray and believe, God, for great and mighty things. Would you do great and mighty things? Because you are God. And that we would not just pray the probable. The probable is when we're saying, I think I got this with a little help from the Lord. Instead of saying, God, you are all powerful, would you do this? And the greatest prayer you can pray is, would you glorify your name in me? It seems highly improbable. Would you let me bear your fruit because you're in me? Would you let me not be so selfish? Would you show me how to love the people in my household as well as those that are very different from me? Would you show me how for the world to see you through my life? Highly improbable, especially with what we've been through. But with God, what does he say? All things are what? Possible. That we would pray those things. Okay, so while his brothers, verse 11, were jealous of Joseph, his father wondered what the dream meant. It's like, okay, that doesn't seem right, but he kept it in his mind, like he did have the dream. Soon after this, Joseph's brothers went to pasture their father's flock at Shechem. Shechem is where they tricked all those men and had them circumcised and came in and slaughtered them. I mean, so we returned to a land that's already ravaged. When they had gone out for some time, Jacob said to Joseph, so he's the younger one, he says, why don't you go? Your brothers are pasturing the sheep at Shechem. Get ready, and I will send you to them. He says, I'm ready to go. Go and see how your brothers in the flocks are getting along. So they're just not like in the field in their backyard. This is a journey. And it says that Jacob says, come back and bring me a report. It reminds me also, doesn't that sound a lot like when David was sent out to the front lines, go check on your brothers, come back and let me see? That's what he's doing, is he's sending the son. So Jacob sent him on his way, and Joseph traveled to Shechem from their home in the valley of Hebron. And then verse 15, when he arrived there, a man from that area where he went, noticed him wandering around the countryside. What are you looking for? He asked. I'm looking for my brothers, Joseph replied. Do you know where they're pasturing their sheep? So he's gone miles and miles and miles. And they're saying no, and he's going to answer them, yes. Verse 17, the man told him, they've moved on from here, but I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. It's another 10 miles away. So Joseph followed his brothers to Dothan, and he found them there. So he's been traveling a long time by himself, seeking these brothers. And Joseph's brothers saw him coming. When they saw him at a distance, it's like, oh boy, within their hearts went just the very sight of him. When they saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance, and as he approached, they made plans to kill him before he ever said a word. Here comes the dreamer, they said. You can tell those dreams have bothered them, right? They said, come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. Cisterns were places that were like stone, if you will, and they would hold water. And so, but this one happens to be empty. But so we would call this sort of some sort of cave type thing that you can't climb out of this. They throw him in one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal came and ate him. And then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. Like, we are going to make this dream so impossible. We will never bow down to this guy because he won't be living. This dream cannot come true. So you still see, instead of just going, it was a dream, it's still messing with them. So verse 21, when Reuben, he's the oldest one that had sex with the concubine. I mean, this is the very picture we were talking about. It's like we would say to a chapter before, he's the bad guy. And now it's like, well, now he's the better one of the brothers in this situation. Nobody completely good, nobody bad. And when Reuben heard of their scheme, he came to Joseph's rescue. But the rescue was, let's not kill him, he said. Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into this empty cistern here in the wilderness. Then he'll die without us laying a hand on him. We can say we didn't kill him. We don't have to bear that. We'll just put him in the cistern and let nature have its way. Reuben was secretly planning to rescue Joseph and return him to his father. He's going to let everybody go, come back and get him, but this seems like the best thing in front of the brothers. So when Joseph arrived, okay, all this has been decided. Joseph gets there. His brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing, and then they grabbed him and they threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty, there was no water in it. Then just as they were sitting down to eat, do you see it? Just like nothing was wrong. Just as they were sitting down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of camels in the distance coming toward them. It was a group of Ishmaelite traders, taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin from Gilead down to Egypt. So this is a group coming They're going to Egypt. So Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain by killing our brother? Like, this isn't really our advantage if we just kill him. I know we can do something that we make money. I mean, if we just leave him there, it's nothing to us. We'd have to cover up the crime. How are we going to cover that up? He's going to be dead in the cistern. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him. This is human trafficking. We are going to sell this person to this group of people. He will have no identity of where he's come from. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. We would think he would say he's our flesh and blood, let's protect him. But they're saying, this way, he says, we don't have to bear the guilt. After all, he is our brother. We don't want to have to bear that. And so he says, our own flesh and blood, and his brothers agreed. So when the Ishmaelites, who were the Midianite traders, came by, Joseph's brother pulled him out of the cistern and sold him to them for 20 pieces of silver, and the traders took him to Egypt. Can you even climb in the heart of the thinking of Joseph? He's been searching for them, looking forward to them, so he can be faithful to the father to say what's happening with the brothers. Hope you get the idea. He's hoping there's a good report, although he has told on them. Maybe he's going to tell on them again. But no matter what, he has gone way out of his way and stayed with the mission to find them, only to find himself a little bit later. It's like when the first thing, it sounds like when he got there, they put him in the cistern, and now you hear the camels and you hear them talking. It's like they're over here eating. It's like, what are y'all doing? What are you doing? My very family is the one who has turned against me. So he says, sometime later, Reuben returned to get Joseph out of the cistern. When he discovered that Joseph was missing, he tore his clothes in grief. And then he went back to the brothers and lamented, the boy is gone. He is not in there. What will we do now? Then the brothers killed a young goat and dipped Joseph's robe in the blood, and they sent the beautiful robe to their father with this message. Look at what we found. Doesn't this robe belong to your son? I mean, it's just this deceptiveness that it's like, oh, it does. Instead of saying this is Joseph's coat, that seems way too forward. So the father recognized it immediately and said, yes, it's my son's robe. A wild animal must have eaten him. Joseph has clearly been torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his clothes and dressed himself in burlap. He mourned deeply for his son for a long time. Once again, this is a lot of time that is passing. But you see these sons, they've caused such distress. And it was because that they were protecting themselves. And we must look at our lives and say, Lord, please don't let me live for myself. Please let me live for your glory and for the renown of your name, which will be peaceful to others. His family all tried to comfort Jacob, but he refused to be comforted. I will go to my grave mourning for my son, he would say, and then he would weep. Meanwhile, the Midianite traders arrived in Egypt, where they sold Joseph to Potiphar. So these people then sell him again. So Joseph, once again, things are completely out of his control. As a slave, they are selling him. They sell him to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Potiphar was captain of the palace guard. Okay, so we're seeing, and of course, many of you know this story, but you're seeing these things of how God is working. And what is going to be the fulfillment of this is those brothers are going to come and they're going to bow down before him. And he's going to say, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. He is going to be taken out of the mainstream where everybody else is running. Everyone else is doing well. And the Lord is doing something in that process of waiting. And he is maturing the story for his glory and for the good and the joy even of Joseph. So I want to talk just a minute about these things. I want to make sure that I've not left anything out here. But I had a really neat story with this. This week, well, I want to talk a minute about the Bonhoeffer. When I went to hear the talk, the forum on Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and it was on joy. It was finding joy in adversity. And so, of course, that's in my mind. That's what I'm still mulling. And then it's laying on top of these scriptures. So if you will, in the pit, in the cistern with no water, and your family is all against you, and you're being sold without things are happening without your will being considered, even out of hatred and manipulation for others' gain. And then we find ourselves being sold from that group so other people could profit. Everyone's profiting, but it's to our detriment. Then how do we find Christ in that situation? These people, in the Old Testament, the Holy Spirit has not been given to them yet. God would come on these people. He is working His will in these people, but He is with them, God with them, but He is not in them. But as believers now, we have, as believers, if we have come into relationship with Him, if we've asked Him to come into our hearts, that we want to live for Him, then He is actually in us. And so it's like, if we find ourselves this, how do we do this to find joy, as Bonhoeffer did when he was in the Nazi concentration camps? He was a very stoic man, and yet they said that he was the happiest man in the camp. It's like, how do we suffer with joy is the question, and that was the form. And so the answer that I took away from that is that we practice finding God in those situations, because God is in us. He is here. So He's not just here when we're here together, or when we gather, say on Sunday morning. He's not just in the midst of us when we are in these holy places, but He is with us when we are cooking at night. He is with us when we are walking with a friend in the morning or by ourselves. He is with us when we are changing a diaper or at a dance for a wedding. He is with us at the wedding when the water is turned to wine. He is with, you understand what I'm saying? It's situational, that He is with us. And that we can find that He is holy and He is here. And we can seek Him knowing He's not just with me, He's in me, to give me strength to endure, to find hope. And in that place, there is a happiness that comes of, oh, you're here with me. So, okay, so my kids, this was so neat to me, but my kids were out of town. Chris and Jeremy were out of town for over a week. And so we splotched together to where we took care of those kids. So it was the night that they were coming in that night, and I was putting the kids down, and I said, your parents will be here in the morning. They're coming in the night. Well, we got a phone call. It was a really, really stormy night here, and so their flight was diverted, and they're in St. Louis, and so it's 10 o'clock at night, and they're probably going to have to stay there. So that means we're putting the kids down. It's like, oh no, there's going to be chaos in the morning. You know, I didn't know if I could even get them to school because they were so happy to see them. Would you have them come in and wake us up and tell us they're home? You know, okay. So I had to tell them, okay, guys, this is the deal. So I told them what was going on. They're not coming. You know, it doesn't look like they're coming home tonight. And so the little one is 6, and so I went in her room, and she was, you know, little lip was quivering, and she said, I want my mom, you know, all the stuff. And so it's like, I know. So I laid down, and so this is part of the story, so I have to tell you this, but it's a little twin bed, and she's in the bed, and she's got her head up, you know, she's on her back. And so I laid down beside her with my head away from her. But I'm right, you know, I'm in a twin bed, it's small, you know, so I'm right beside her. And I'm down just a little bit from her, and I said, let me just stay in here with you for a little while. And I said, and she said, but it's just so sad. And she said, will they ever come home? You know, just all the stuff that breaks your heart. And so I sat up and I looked at her and I said, Ellie Tate, I said, you believe in God? And she said, I do. And I said, He is here. He is here with us. And I said, in this real bad sadness, the Lord is here to make you happy sad. He can do both at the same time. And so we need to invite Him into this sadness, because He's here with us and He changes everything. And so she said, okay, you know, that was the end. She didn't say anything. So I laid back down, and she said, I know what I'll do. I'll count the hairs on your head. Because you got it. You got where I am? And so I said, okay, that might work too. You know, it's like, whatever we need to do, let's do that. And so that last, 6 seconds, 10, and she said, oh, it's just too many. And so I said, but all of a sudden, I left out one part, I'm sorry. So we prayed, Lord, would you come to this situation? We did pray that. That was it. We invite Him in. Lord, we invite you into this situation. then the hair. And so that didn't last but just a minute, and so seconds. And she said, I can't count the hairs on your head. And of course, it made me think of that verse. And so I said, oh, Ellie Tate, guess who knows how many hairs are on my head? Guess who knows how many hairs are on your head? And she said, nobody. And I said, God does. And she said, no, he doesn't. And I said, yes, he does. I said, the scriptures say that. And she said, they do not. And I said, yes, they do. And she said, the Bible talks about hair. And I said, yes, it does. And she said, there's a verse in the Bible about hair. And I said, yes. And she said, what does it say? And I said, it says that God knows how many hairs are on your head. Will he not take care of you? And I saw it with my own eyes. God come into that spot that I had no wisdom to bring. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I was trying to take you through my thinking so you could see I didn't have that. And it was like, Lord, you are here. You are here. You are here. And that if we go through our times that we cannot understand, these times of waiting, to invite the presence of God into that spot. You are here. And I acknowledge you. You have suffered for me. Suffer with me. Suffer with me to show me the plans that you have. And if you won't show me the plans, show me how I stay steadfast this day. And that's what Joseph is able to do through his life. And in that waiting, God was doing miraculous things. So I want us to end with, look at on page 3. Is that right? Do y'all have a 3? And does it at the bottom? Okay, look at near the bottom where it says Genesis 45:4. Y'all see that? Okay, this is how he answers them. Once again, I'm skipping way ahead because we're not going to be together for a while. But he says, when he finally sees the brothers and they bow to him, he says, I'm Joseph, your brother. You know, the one you sold into Egypt. I mean, what an amazing statement that he is saying, I am that one. And that we would stand on the other side of the things to know that what God is doing, it is good. Just look at Isaiah 40:31 at the bottom of that sheet. They that wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not be weary. They will walk and not faint. And you can pray these things for yourself. You can say, Lord, would you let me wait? Would you let me mount on wings of eagles? Would you let me run and not be weary? Would you let me walk this day and not faint? The next one, to pray this. Lord, may I wait on you. May I be of good courage. Would you give me good courage? Will you strengthen my heart? Yes, I will wait on you. Next verse, next page. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. This is saying we're saved, but that we're continuing seeing the salvation of the Lord, the deliverance. Psalm 37, be still before the Lord. That we would be still and say, Lord, this is a complicated story. I will wait patiently for you. I will not fret over the one who prospers, over the man who carries out evil devices like Esau. And then we say here, Psalm 130, I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope. You know the hairs on my head. Isaiah 30:18, therefore the Lord waits. He waits. Isn't that great? He waits to be gracious to you. Blessed are those who wait for him. Okay, so that we would wait for him. Okay, so God is with us. This is the recap of it again. He's with us. That's the difference. Waiting while others prosper is a test of our faithfulness and perseverance, but that God can use the evil of others to accomplish good in their lives. Okay, so we're going to, for our questions today, I want to go to the one of number 4, if you will. Who is ultimately responsible for the evil the brothers did to Joseph? Ultimately, who allowed that to happen? That was God. And we have trouble with that, don't we? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But in this, why are these scriptures in here? They are given to us for correction, to teach us in righteousness, to train us. These are the ways of the Lord, that we would embrace him, this is your God. That we would not conform him to us, but we would be conformed to him. So it says, what other evil acts can you think of that God has actually ordained to bring about good? If there's anybody in here that's willing to tell a story about evil that happened but brought about good, is anyone willing to do that? We've kind of done that before, but this is a story. You can even talk about one in the Bible if it's not your own. But something that's just like that should have never happened, but the good that came from it. And even if you're not willing to share this, you know those stories. Anybody have something like that?